Welcome to another new episode of Get Organised with Declutter Me with myself, Shelina. This week, my guest is Jasmine Sleigh of Change Your Space and author of new book, Being Owned, A Decade in Professional Decluttering. If you've listened to the podcast previously, you would have heard Jasmine and I chatting about hoarding and how she's helped her clients. But this time, as we both have books out, I thought it'd be fun to read each other's books and chat about it on this new episode. Kind of like an organisers book club. So welcome, Jasmine, to the Get Organised podcast. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Shelina. I'm well.
Awesome. And yeah, nice. And we were just talking about the weather before, but you're like nice and warm at home, even though it's freezing cold outside. Even though it's cold here.
It's starting to warm up just a little bit. I was saying that people are starting to re-emerge from hibernation here in the UK.
But yeah, no, it's still too cold. It involves layers. I can't be doing layers. It's just not great. So your book has just come out, or it's coming out very soon?
23rd of February is the official launch. It's available for pre-order now, so on all the usual spots. So yeah, it's available.
Amazing. That's so exciting. So what made you decide to write a book now, like after 10 years?
Yeah, I suppose it's a good point being 10 years in to sort of reflect on where I got to, what made my business different, what I do with people, what makes it unique to me. Right. You know yourself, professional decluttering is an expanding profession. Yeah. And here in the UK, the Southwest, for example, in the peninsula of the UK, when I first started out 10 years ago, I was all on my own, pretty much. Yeah. And now there are about 8 or 9 people, and that's just APTO registered organisers. New people coming into the profession. What is it that makes me different to other people? And also, what is it about the job? You know, when you get to a certain stage of 10 years of doing something, what is it that keeps me motivated in the job? Because it is quite a broad church, isn't it? The industry. And the people that we work with it's everybody and anybody, actually. Yeah. But where are the clients that I particularly enjoy supporting? So it gave me some time to reflect on that, and to really think about what it is that I do in a time just to self-reflect.
I've known you for years and I know what you do. But reading that, it was even more an eye-opener about the kind of clients you have, because it's completely different from the kind of clients I have. So it's fascinating from that point of view. And like how you deal with the clients is different as well. So what did you learn about yourself when writing the book?
Well, you'll know yourself, and I'd be fascinated to know how you found writing yours, because like you say, you know, we're both declutterers, we're both professional organisers. People tend to think that we're all doing the same things. Actually, they're all very different. Yeah. And your book and my book they're really different books, but they are explaining, in a way, the same phenomenon, but for people who are perhaps different, have different relationships with their belongings, but yet we're all on a spectrum. So it fascinates me, that kind of that journey that people are on. Right. I thought it was just an opportunity to sort of unpack some of the successes, and I would say, Shelina, as well, a bit of reflection on where it didn't work, because it is quite a challenging area of work. Working with people who are chronically disorganised, hoarding, who are really nervous, who perhaps it's not been their idea to have a declutterer in. It might be a referral from social services or housing, that they're only at crisis level. You know, how their interaction with belongings, where I fit in that, because it's not always a welcome position. But I learned a lot about what stories stuck with me. Right. So the successes, and there are some brilliant breakthroughs that we just still love.
The Piano Man was a good one. I like that. I like that one. But
brilliant. And he still continues to surprise us. And then the ones where it was too tricky for them, but just to acknowledge a bit of what that process was like, so that people understand it's not a straightforward journey for some people, and for some people that you meet them at the right point and you can see huge transformations in their lives. So yeah, it really taught me a bit about it was interesting what I remembered, and what, in terms of the client stories that stuck with me.
Yeah. And I suppose, because for you, it was more, you wrote a memoir rather than a self-help book. Like mine was more a self-help book because I couldn't reach everybody that I want. I always was getting asked, like, do you do courses? Do you do that? And I was like, well, it'd be easier if I just write it out in a book and give my top tips and, explain how it works, how my, the way I work, which is, obviously different from where you work, which was like, that was great to see as well, because you work very, slowly and you gauge what the clients want, whereas mine is most of them the same. I did a kitchen again today, and the kitchens are always different stuff, but same sort of layout, and I put it into zones, which I put in, which is mentioned books. So yeah, yours is more a memoir. So yeah, what made you think of writing like a memoir rather than like a self-help book for hoarders? Or
I think that's a really interesting question, because I take what you're saying there, that for people who are already quite they feel cluttered, but they're not super overwhelmed. They want like you say, they want the tips, they want the pointers. Now there's a cascade of the videos that people do with sorting out and tips and pointers. Absolutely so useful to people. The TV programs, they are phenomenally useful. Like you say, your resource for someone who just needs that guidance. And I'm always going to be using your toiletries expiration dates. Brilliant. Those pointers that just take people from I'm not sure to I know what to do. I've got Shelina's tool here. I know where I am. The people that I tend to see, we're a long way away from getting to that stage. They're still at the how do I access my kitchen? How do I make sure my kitchen only has kitchen things in it? But we can all recognise the spectrum. They're going to get there potentially eventually.
Right.
Sometimes they'll say, I've got all this paint because I'm going to decorate. And you think you are a couple of years away from being able to decorate. We need to, get access to the rooms and the walls and those sort of things. So it's just starting at a much earlier point. Plus, people are, like I say, incredibly nervous. So we don't. It's not just handling their belongings. And you have this as well, because you're mindful. It might be something you touch that's a bit more sensitive than something else. We feel quite the weight of the people that we work with often have an awful lot of attachments to an awful lot of the things around. So we have to double check everything that in a straightforward situation may just readily go into recycling. Whereas check it in case it's something special or whatever. So it does, you're right, it slows the process down. It takes a while to sort of pick up momentum, and it can be a little while before you still get transformations, but they're not the ones that look great on social media. And they mean a lot to the person, but it might be the area around the sink or around the bed, so they can access the bed. Those are big wins. They're not sort of thing that look amazing on a time-lapse video.
I know, but I think and that's, but then the type of clients that you're going to attract are not going to be the ones that are going to be looking at social media anyway. Your ones most probably, they might look at social media, but they won't look at anything about this stuff, so it's kind of balancing, isn't it? And I suppose if you're getting social services in to help, to say that these people need help as well. But I know like what do you mean? I mean, these videos they're great, and I mean, I do a lot of before and after videos as well. But I see the ones where they're putting things into boxes and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much more to it, you know. I mean, like you deal with hoarders, I deal with a lot with mental health issues. So it's just always like, no, there is other things involved with putting things into boxes. It's not just, let's get some boxes and put things into it and make it look nice slowly. Yeah.
I found as well, and I don't know if you found this when you were writing your book, that it was the when people say, you know, what's the worst job, what's the best job?
Yes.
And actually what they're looking for is, you know, what are the strange things in people's houses. And actually what resonated with me the most was the conversations that we've had with people about their stuff and the connection. So this is the difficulty of the profession in one sense, in that I can introduce myself as a declutterer, but I don't like the word declutter, and I don't like the association of it being about loss.
Yeah.
So, but people kind of know what that is. I struggle with organizer because decluttering is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So it's that knowledge that what buzzes me is the celebration of people finding lost things, of reconnecting with their homes, you know, really sharing stories about their belongings, them having the actual say about where things go. Because like you say, you know, I've done my fair share of unpacks in kitchens where, like you say, there's a particular place for most things.
Yeah.
It's quite logical. But in a broader home, it's quite bespoke, isn't it? About where people have their things put, and them having that control and that conversation. And the funny stories, those are the things that stayed with me, as those conversations, those you can't show on a time-lapse video.
No, exactly.
Where that person has a bit of a breakthrough about that. There's no way of showing that physically.
No, no.
So that's the difficulty, but the bit that motivates me, I think.
And I've seen it like working in the UK and also here, especially, you know, with clients who are Emirati, that they have history in their items and they say the history. That is the lovely part. And there's not that much here, especially with expats, because they don't bring that often with them. You know, they've come in a suitcase and then built up the stuff. But you must have wonderful stories of items and pieces of furniture. You know, that's amazing. I mean, I had one client recently, they've moved from Scotland to here and they brought the pew from a church where their son got christened. And it's the most amazing piece of furniture. You'll never see that in Dubai. Like, you know, you might see that where you are, like somebody's done that as well from an old church and brought it into the house. I haven't seen that in all these 10 years. And then suddenly I'm seeing that. I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. It reminds me of when I used to go to church. And she was like, are you mad? And I'm like, no, this is amazing. Like, and she was like, no, I'm going to sell it. And I'm like, you've brought it all the way here and now you're going to sell it. No, you're keeping it. Like, it's too fabulous a piece. So, but yeah, you must see your gorgeous, gorgeous pieces.
Some wonderful, like you say, wonderful pieces of history for people but it is the tales that they tell, and the fact that they've got a tangible thing that's a memory.
Yeah.
You know, often that's a real celebration when somebody can name something specifically. When we work with people who everything is special, what we're looking is to try and narrow it down. But it's absolutely wonderful. And we were you know, the first story in the book, when we say about Darren and his journey, and that bit in the book where I say I pop in and Rachel, my assistant, and Darren are at the top of the stairs, and they'd opened up our old wardrobe and they're trying on all these different folk outfits, having a giggle. And I said in the book, if people don't think that's what we do, that is what we do. Because that man had come on such a journey to be there at the top of the stairs, able to open that cupboard, but reconnecting with who he actually is and the things that make him proud and happy and really good memories. It makes you tingle just thinking about it. That's what we're about. There's no point having stuff that doesn't bring good memories. And then there's no point having so much stuff you can't sift and understand what's poignant to you and what's not. It's when you get those specific things. Oh, it's joyous.
Yeah. And I find that when they find those things, it brings out it takes off that block, and then they start becoming creative again. And I noticed that, like, that you had a lot of people in the book who were creative people. And I have a lot of clients who are creative, artistic, calligraphers. I've had all kinds of artists here. And so, it's lovely seeing them, because their brains work differently. So that's why, but you must have some real creative, like, geniuses that you've worked with before.
Oh, I agree with you. It's a different bit of brain. And I think what I find myself saying is they'll go, oh, I can't do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I say, I can't do what you do.
Exactly.
So I often say to crafters and other ones, and it's fabric and things like that, I can't sew two bits of material together.
Yeah.
So when they show me the things they've made, I go, it's amazing to me that you can make this.
Yeah.
But then what I bring to the table is, and I can make, you have lots of space to be able to lay your fabric out in a way that, and for you to know where your resources are. So those two meetings of minds is when it's a nice dance, when it's a match dance, is lovely. Because I can't do those things. I like facilitating people who can.
Exactly. That's the same with me. And I always say that the same thing, that I can't do what you do. I pay someone to do it. So that you paying me to do it is the same kind of logic. And it is lovely to see what they have, and I can appreciate it, but I can't do it myself. I'm the same. I'm totally, I can't. But I was seeing about your book, and I was wondering, like, you have these people, they must have mental health issues, do you discuss it with them before you go in for your first session, or is it something that's revealed whilst working with them? Because with me, a lot of it's revealed during the session. I don't often know what the issue is. So how does it work with you?
I mean, sometimes I might be given a care plan from social services. If I'm going in to see someone, might say if they've had a diagnosis. I mean, obviously in this country, plenty of people without diagnoses of their mental health needs. But even if I do, I think I don't take this sounds awful, but I don't take a great deal of interest in it ahead, because the way that it these conditions can manifest themselves. As you know, it's a bit of context, but the way so say, for example, I might have a care plan, might say this person has ADHD or whatever it might be, but it manifests itself in different ways when I meet the person in terms of how they manage their home. So it's useful context. We have, like you say, the full spectrum of people, but it's really tricky, because I feel like I can now, you might be the same, I kind of feel it when I get there, and that doesn't sound very technical, but I kind of get a sense from the person where the limits are. And that's why you say in your book, absolutely you say about advising people to start gentle, because they don't necessarily know themselves what's going to be problematic, what's going to be easy, and it's good to not, to get the wins and have that positive reinforcement than to push things too far and go, I'm never sorting out again.
Exactly.
I don't always know in advance, and sometimes when I do, like you say, for those who are who do have very strong hoarding tendencies or even hoarding disorder, what I often find is that they will tell me everything early doors. I was explaining something the other day that if I get a private email in, often it will be quite a detailed explanation of somebody, their life, the trauma, their mental health, might not say what they want doing. And they were really surprised. And I said, I'm not giving away any confidence there. And I expect it. It's not that I go, oh, it's another long one again or anything. No, but it's just an interesting area which most people might not be aware of. That is, that there's a lot of living the trauma in their life as if it happened yesterday. but not necessarily focused on, and I would like my lounge cleared, or I'd like to be able to do this in this room or whatever. It's not about the functional space. It's about the overwhelm of everything else. So sometimes, I'll have that in advance.
Right. I suppose they're living, it sounds cold, but they're sort of living in the past and living in the past with their emotions and not moving forward with their emotions, so that they can't move forward with their clutter in a way, isn't it? It's just, I mean, I know with a lot of mine, they're at that breaking point, so they know they need to, but they're not at that far gone that they can't realize that they need to get themselves sorted. So I've only had a few, I think 2 or 3 hoarders in my time, and not had many sessions with them. So I always admire you. Like when I was reading your book, how many sessions, years you go through working with them. And I'm like, I've done about 2 with each client, and then we've called it quits, So
you can see direction of travel though. It is hard to, when you say years, I mean, some people I can't work with for years. It has been very short, reduced risks. Hope leave things well for them, and then move on. And we're not set. The funding arrangements in the UK are not set up to spend lots of time with people. We have to often be quite quick with them, even though there's years and years. The other thing is, to be empathic and understanding. You'll understand this with your clients. Is that. It's a bit like personal training. That is, there's always a point where somebody's like, I don't know if I can do the work.
Exactly.
Identify you've got a challenge in your home. Visualizing you want things to be different. Okay, that's the essentials we need to be able to engage, really. But the crux for me is whether the pain is going to be worth it. So I think I mentioned in some of the stories that for some people the pain is just they can't see it being worth it, and so they give up. And you'll know yourself at a lighter touch. There's always, do I have to do? I don't want to have to do that cupboard as well. You're like, well, it's kind of key to getting all the rest of this sorted out. So so you're an encourager. You give that motivation. For myself, it can be, it's just perhaps at an earlier stage than it is perhaps by the time you've got to an area that they've been putting off for a while. They need you, definitely on the side and giving them a bit of a movement towards doing it.
No, I call myself the pusher. The encourager actually sounds better than a pusher, because I sound like I'm a drugs pusher. But I'm like, I'm pushing you to get on with it, or to guide me on what you need and don't need. But I have the big sighs. The big sighs are a thing. Like especially when I've done full day sessions, like 8-hour sessions, it gets to about 6 hour, and they're like, and I'm like, are you sighing? What are you doing? Why are you sighing at me? Like, you've done all this. We only got 2 more hours, so let's go on. And they're like, oh God, do I have to? I'm like, yes, you do. You're paying me for this. So, but the big sigh is the sign that it's time for a break. Coffee and biscuit break or tea break, and then they stop sighing. I know it's hard for them, but you're just like, let's just get it done. Then you don't have to deal with me ever again, or until the next time. I saw in one, I can't remember the person, but you were talking about Christmas and presents in one of the chapters, and Christmas has just passed, and tell everybody what's your thoughts about Christmas presents now, because I thought it was brilliant.
I'm quite controversial in my family, because I think I was the first person to bring this around, where around November I send an email asking people what they want.
Right.
Well, give me solid ideas. And initially it was met with a bit of resistance, I think. People like the surprise, and don't worry about me, it's all fine. Like, no, you need to tell me, because I absolutely can't bear to give things that people don't want or need, because we find cupboards full of unwanted gifts, or gifts that were bought in the year that weren't for anyone particular, and then 3 or 4 years are still in the cupboard. And so I'm finding out what people want, and giving them that makes me properly happy. I mean, with a bit of creativity, but I can't bear this, that might just do for them kind of thing, unless it's a pack of biscuits or something. But, so that's been quite controversial, but particularly because Christmas is all year round for me. We're always stumbling across Christmas presents, Christmas gifts for others, Christmas decorations and that sort of thing. And just having a little bit of a handle on it is really helpful.
Well, it's good. It's good you're still buying. I don't buy anything. Like now I've said to people.
Really? That's interesting. Tell me how you manage that.
Well, it helps being an expat. So you're like, no, I can't because I can't post it, and postal strikes. And plus we're Muslim, even though, we celebrate Christmas and I do it with the nephews, but my parents buy the nephews a present and it comes under my name is on the card as well. But for friends, for years, I've said, I don't want a present. I don't want anything. If you're going to give me anything, give me vouchers. So I ask for even for my birthday, I ask for cinema vouchers and then I'll use that all year. And there's apps where you can get vouchers for shops or for malls or for cinema here. And I'm sure they have it in the UK. So that's what I do. I say to people, don't give me money or give me vouchers, but don't give me anything. I'll buy myself what I want. And people are like, okay. So
that's a lovely idea. And I did have a friend who recently said that with friends now, she's just said, let's do something together. Let's go for coffee together, or let's do something together. And even if you're at a distance, say, well, let's make a time when we're online together and have have something, special to eat or something. But the time, everyone knows this now, I suppose. It's becoming more complex to understand that experiences with people is so much better than trying to send something.
Exactly.
But no, I love your idea. I'm going to be taking that forward.
Yes. No, say, this is what I do. Why would I want clutter from you people? Just give me a voucher. I say it to people, I'm like, I have what I want. If I don't have what I want, I will ask for it, or I'll ask for money so that I can buy what I want. But I don't want, I don't want anything. Even my parents, I'm like, just give me money. It's like, it's fine.
Easier. Much easier.
It's much easier. And as you said, I go into people's houses. People buy things and leave them in the bags. I never understand that thing, that they leave it in the bags. I'm like, what was the point of buying it if you're not going to even take it out of the carrier bag? So we're unwrapping things all the time, aren't we? It's just like, no, it's not fun anymore. Unless it's something fabulous, like, a nice handbag, but that happens sometimes.
Yes. Oh, have you bought this for anyone particular? No, I think, and some people love the idea of purchasing something. They see something and they purchase it. I think for some of the people where they've purchased things because they look nice for them.
Yeah.
They've not, it's not being for because they're thinking about the other person. No. If you're not shopping for a specific person in mind, then there's a chance that you're going to have something. And as you've probably, you mentioned with the types of, there are things where people buy them in kind of error. It's brand new. And then it adds the sort of guilt that's held with it because it hasn't been in their home very long. So letting it go is like admitting, and it's well known within our sort of professional circles, isn't it? That sort of making a mistake in buying something and holding on to it. Those two things are both mistakes. It's you can cancel it out by keeping it for longer.
No, exactly.
Let it go. Be back out there, especially toiletries and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm always saying to people, just is an error. Let it go back out there while it's still useful to somebody else.
Exactly.
Let's take it out of the packaging and use it yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
this is the thing.
Lather yourself with it and just enjoy it. That's,
No, I'm saying, I say it, and like with makeup and stuff, when they bought makeup and then they're like, oh no, it's horrible, or it's wrong color. I'm like, well, put it all in a bag and give it to your maid or give it to someone who will appreciate it. Or if you've got young girls like nieces or something who are into makeup, because of all the TikTok trends, they can practice on all this makeup that's you don't like, and it's not going to be a waste. So, but it's Yeah, present. And I'm like, why burden somebody with your taste? As you said, it's your taste. So let's not burden someone. I don't want it. I just give vouchers. But I was reading in your book. So there was one client, one of your clients, Leah. You were trying to remove the items, but she kept on making new piles. And I was just frustrated reading it. Like, she's just taking it from you and making like a nice little pile next to her, right? So what do you do when you can't remove anything or make space for them during the session when they're just shuffling it around? Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, with deep frustration but outward kindness. But I think I wanted to include. I thought long and hard about including the story about Leah because, and Steve, I think as well, because in those two cases, we only got so far, and then that was far enough for them, and it was what we were saying about. And I was talking to somebody earlier on today, and I said, the thing that fascinates me the most is that for most of us, if you like, if we're going to pop something into recycling, we can just do it. Yeah. This thing's recycle, I'm going to put it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't give it another thought. And then there are other people. I was working with a lady who said, when we're working together, she said in the session, she said, it feels like you're operating on me and taking things out of my body.
Wow.
And I'm fascinated by that psychology. That is all the steps in between, where the gap is, if you like, between me and my sense of myself and that item.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients, it ends up so like this. So like I say, from a outside perspective, I'm really understanding of Leah because she's terrified, and every single thing she thought would be a problem for her if it went. And so all those things are quite entwined.
Yeah.
I mean, even touching the stuff was causing her anxiety and distress.
Yeah.
So I'm understanding the practicality is a finite amount of funding has been granted to her from social services to make her safe.
Yeah.
And this is her point where she stays in control, because anything after my involvement is clearance.
Right.
It's where somebody would come in, if she ended up in hospital and she couldn't be discharged home, they would send in a company that would bin bag everything to make it clear for her.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I'm the bit that's where she can stay in control,
right? Yeah,
but make changes. So there has to be that little bit of understanding that we do have to make progress if we're to stay funded.
Yeah,
and they don't keep funding there forever. And there's lots of people who don't get funding, but also acknowledging that that's a weave that has evolved over maybe 20 years.
Yeah,
and starting to get that takes time. So really hard.
Yeah.
But so frustrating as well from a business perspective, because I can just see, so 10 sessions have been granted, but probably she's only going to have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So that's frustrating as a business owner.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because I care about my clients. I should say that right as that. I care about them making progress. I care about their story, but I want to see them be safe and well and enjoy their home.
Yeah.
But acknowledging the fact that she wasn't in control of that compulsion.
Yeah. But
she's not doing it to be difficult.
Yeah, it's just her compulsion, she said. But do they know? Did she know that if she didn't clear anything, that a clearance company would come in and just remove everything? Was that put as, like, did social services tell her that's the option?
No. No. I mean, often it's in that sort of stage in between where she can manage her home just about.
Right.
It's not so full that she couldn't live there, but it will only get worse with the current habits in the home. And if her physical health deteriorated in any way, and like I say, she needed anyone to come in, then that would be the point where it would be seen as not possible for her to stay living there. The other dilemma, Shelina, is, of course, adding more anxiety to somebody who's already anxious. So I can lay it out plain what the possibilities are if they don't engage with us. All I do is make an anxious person even more anxious.
No, it's
it's really hard to get the balance. So I wanted to write the book because I wanted to explain I don't always get it right. But with reflecting, we've been really proud of the work we've done. We considerable expertise, but it is a dance, and I don't always get it right. I look back on some of those cases and go, oh, I'd said it that way or done it that way. Would we still be working with Leah, or would we? And so it bothers me, but it's an honest portrayal of how tricky it is to be in that position.
But you're in a whole other position because there is so much involved, not just physically but mentally with them, that you've got that balance you have to make, and it's a very, very fine balance for you to deal with these people. So it's fascinating. It's so fascinating for me. Now you mentioned Swedish death cleaning, which I talked about recently on an episode again because I love talking about it now. Do you discuss it with your clients? Because I keep on mentioning it now because lots of clients will often say that their parents are hoarders, and I'm like, they're not hoarders, they're just old and that from that generation that never learned how to get rid of anything, so that's why they've held on to everything. But I explain the concept so they start telling other people. But do you tell your clients as well about the greatness?
No, I haven't, but like yourself, it's a phenomenon that I'm sort of warming myself to, really. And I love this idea of doing, you mentioned it, the doing gradually. People call us in when they've got an objective and they want to do something and want the helping hand, we get on and do it. But the actual art, if you like, of letting stuff go regularly, practiced, letting go. It's something I take for granted. I do it all the time. But the idea of gradually letting go with an idea of your legacy, not necessarily doing it for yourself, doing it for others, which obviously that generation will be more inclined potentially because they want to do right by their kids and everything. So I do like the idea of it. And also I acknowledge that we've probably got a long way to go with, with research about hoarding. But I wonder if, we're letting things get to a crisis level and it has to be a big push. This is not really the way to solve it. We can't change it the way our social care system set up at this stage. But the idea of getting them practice to let things go every day, a tiny little, it's like anything, isn't it? It's like diet, exercise, just a little change every day, so it becomes practice. It's actually probably the most sustainable way of seeing change in the long term. So I'm definitely going to be reading more about it because I think it's fascinating. The other thing quickly to say is the number of people who say to me, you're right about, well, my parents are hoarders. And they say, I can't broach the subject with them. I said, no, it's too sensitive. But you can say, how about we do an audit? Shall we do an audit of the loft or the spare room or the space that you've got where they're keeping, somebody was saying, keeping Uncle Joe's shoes, and Uncle Joe passed years ago. But, the thing is, sometimes those things up there have become useful. So they treasure trove up there. Why don't we do an audit of what's up there? So if you do start to lose a little bit of mental capacity, like all of us start to get a bit more forget, you've got it written down what you've got there. I said, and in that cataloguing is essentially curating the space. There will be some things that they'll be happy to let go, but to go in not as a, come on, we're going to let half of this go out the door. It's just see what you've got up there. And of course, that's a tip that we use for people who are really nervous. It's like, well, let's take the letting go out of the equation for a moment. Let's just see what's in there.
That's a good idea, actually. I've never suggested doing an audit. That's a good idea, actually. Even though I got my parents to, because they were keeping everything, and then I told them about Swedish death cleaning. So during COVID or past COVID, they started doing the attic in the shed, and they found like so many suitcases. They found my dad's one from when he moved to the UK in 69, right? So this is, those old cardboard ones with the lot. Yeah, like, you're like, why have you got that when we got amazing Samsonite suitcases now? You know what I mean? So it's like, and even they acknowledged, they went, this is absurd. This is why we got all this stuff. And they cleared it. The whole attic's empty now. But it was just, it helped me being who I am and my business and telling them, like, you need to do this because when you go, God forbid, I will come in and just get it all out and just put it in the recycling. So that sort of spurred them on. But yeah, no, we need to get more people into it, I think. Yeah. And I think, like, as you said, if we start doing it bit by bit, like I do, like I say about doing the mini declutter and having a bag in your wardrobe or something, and you just keep on filling it every day. It's just an easy way to get rid of stuff, isn't it? It's, yeah.
It's an easy way to get rid of stuff. And it's the flexing of like I say, when I reflect on it as the gap between, and I don't mean that we don't have any special things, because there are things, but that gap between the item and myself, that is, does it serve me? Can I ask some fundamental questions about whether it is useful to me?
Yeah.
And we're quite stoic in the UK. We don't necessarily ask if it sparks joy, of course. But we at the very least can say, is it serving a purpose for me? And it flexes those muscles all the time so that we get quite used to it. And have I got rid of things in my life that I regret? Yes.
Yeah.
You got to get practiced at forgiving yourself about it. And if the gap is significantly there, then you can go, I should have kept that because actually it's useful. But it's useful 4 years down the line. And, and it's just having that light touch, I think. And like you say, doing a little and often really helps with that.
I think so, yeah. I mean, even though sometimes I do I did my kitchen and I just purged so much food. I was like, why have I got so much this food? It's just, I was embarrassed with myself, but anyway. Now, in the book, you talked about right sizing, which I loved that term. But how do you first explain what right sizing is for the listeners. And then how do you get the clients to realize they need to declutter to right size to their new location?
I can't take the credit for right sizing. I can't even remember who I heard it from, but I love that phrase. Like you say, it's had lots of it, because the term downsizing, which everybody knows what downsizing is, just sounded negative. You know, it's like a step down, a demotion.
It's true.
And so many of the reasons why, especially our senior clients, sort of talking about moving from large properties with gardens and space that they have to maintain, it was becoming a burden. They wanted to go somewhere where it was all, there's somebody on site to do all the repairs and all those things that they didn't want to have to walk miles around to get to not walk far to be able to get to their kitchen lounge and have things accessible, perhaps all on an apartment all on one floor, all those sort of things. Not be isolated, because a lot of our clients were, we've got Dartmoor and Exmoor here in the southwest of England, huge national parks, huge in the UK, and they're really quite isolated, especially in the cold weather. So they got these really positive reasons for wanting to make a move, and downsizing. Of course, it's just about the shrinkage of the square footage that people have access and the storage that they'll have available. So in having those conversations, same skills used as my other clients, that is keeping them focused on the positives that they're moving for is the goal. That, because there's going to be plenty of things that might put you off when you start the move. The work of moving is quite hard. So keeping your eye on the prize. But I love that idea that it's not about a demotion, it's about fitting a home to be right for you for that stage of life you're at. If you're not entertaining 20 people, you don't need a whopping great big dining table and place settings. Your life is different now. But that acknowledgement of change, again, it's a psychological aspect, isn't it, of acknowledging a different chapter where you used to do those things. That was that chapter. Now I do different. and not look back on it as a loss or a regret or something you should still be doing now. Life changes now. And the people I used to look at you and go, well, I don't think I need much in my kitchen because I like going out to eat now. And I'm like, good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I did in my 70s. I'm just going to go out for lunch all the time. That sounds brilliant. So it's just understanding how life has changed and matching your home with that. How's going to enable you to have the life that you want going forward? How you approach it? Yeah, just staying that positive.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I love it.
Just seeing, if you keep that lifestyle you want in mind, the decisions about whether you need all this other stuff with you becomes a little bit easier. And like you say with your parents, actually, most of the fear is about just looking in the first place. Once they do start looking, they do realise the stuff at the back there that has long since gone past its usefulness. They just haven't looked for a while.
No,
and
exactly.
especially if they can do something useful with it. So if it's going to be helpful to somebody else, or even if it goes into recycling for us, a lot of our waste is incinerated for energy, so there's going to be something positive used from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone wins.
I think so. Yeah, you're right. It's completely true. And I think that's what people have to think. And I always say, yes, you declutter, you get rid of a lot of stuff and you see how much money you wasted, but think about the future, that you're not going to waste money again because you're not going to do the same thing again because you've seen how much you've wasted up to now. So I always try and spin it around to be positive, to look at what your future is going to be like. It's going to be decluttered, plus you're going to save money because you're not going to waste money. And if you think about doing it, you WhatsApp me first and ask me if you should buy something, which some clients do. So yeah, I'm like, no, you don't need that. Oh, that might work. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, you have this, it was this beautiful line, right? So first, this is in the books, listeners, right? It says, first, that hoarding and living amongst too much stuff is not just something to just be dismissed as eccentric behavior. Its roots and causes are varied and complex, although often centered around grief and loss, and therefore our first instinct should be compassion and understanding. I loved this in your book. It's so true. But then you watch these TV programs and watch social media and they put hoarding and having a lot of stuff as something like really terrible and eccentric, and these people are awful and mad and dirty. And, the book helped a lot. I mean, that, just that sentence alone just was like resonated with me. But how do you get people to change this perception when you're working with them and with their loved ones as well, and with especially loved ones, like, you're dealing with a client, but explain to the loved ones, like, it's not an awful thing.
And to be fair to loved ones, they care deeply about the person, and what they're struggling with is that it looks like their dear relative has exchanged their personal relationship with them for a stockpile of random stuff. So that's what will feel really hurtful. But it's understanding that's not a personal choice at that stage. There's so much more going on for the person. To be fair, I spend a lot of the time having these. Sorry, cat's playing a.
Sorry, wants to wiggle his tail. Are you going to sit here? Yes, okay.
I spend a lot of time speaking to professionals. I mean, social services and health, still an awful lot of misperception.
Right.
The biggest one being that if we just clear them out, they're going to be better.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a definite no. Yeah. And to understand it's a compulsion like any other compulsion, but, with alcoholism, for example, you wouldn't just say, if we take all the drink away in the home, they will not want to touch an alcoholic drink again. They'll feel better. No, it's not, because it's in their mind and it's a compulsion. It actually will feel a lot worse if you sort of penalise them in that way. So, there's still a lot to go on. Don't get me wrong, there's still an awful lot of safety that has to be considered, and for some people they are in dangerous situations that do require urgent action. So I'm not saying that there's a easy answer for everybody, but you're right, the perception, it's why I find the labels so difficult. working with hoarders, or we're working with, and when people say, what's the worst case you've ever done, they're looking for that salacious kind of, oh, there was this horrible job with it, and I don't think that way when I'm there. I'm all about, is the person able to do the work to get where they want to go, or are the barriers right up? You know, and that's all I'm interested in. And how do we do that dance so we can make things go forward, but in a way they're comfortable with? I don't see the squalor. I don't see the things that are not quite right. They are real people who are struggling, and that's my hope, is that we can try and spend enough time with them that the person behind the stuff can emerge. But of course, what people see isn't a lot of stuff. And there's a final thing to sort of say on that, is that because we see ourselves on a spectrum, that, oh, I know what it's like to have sentimental items, but I can throw stuff away quite straightforwardly into recycling. I automatically project that forward to people who can't let anything go. And everything's sentimental. So we can understand it in a way, but we think it's the same. It's self-control that is the difference. And it's not.
No.
It's a disorder. It's a mental health issue. It's fear, and it distorts things at that end. So it's not just laziness. And
it's never laziness.
No, but it'd be amazing. It's so hard to make that sort of argument going forward for some people. And some of the people I work with feel themselves that's what it is.
But it
isn't.
No.
You know, when it's gone to a sort of a level where there's no home comforts available, that's not a choice. That's the brain doing something that's not right for the person.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even like clients I've had recently, they've said, you know, people might think I'm lazy. I'm like, you're not lazy. You're just overwhelmed. Like, you know, and it's a normal amount of stuff in cupboards, but it's just thrown into the cupboards or randomly put in. It's just too overwhelming for them. Whereas our brains obviously work differently, and we see it not as, we don't see it as overwhelming. Well, I don't know how you do it, because I would find it overwhelming looking at some of these houses. But for me, when I look at the stuff, I don't get overwhelmed. I see what it's going to look like later. And I don't know if that works for you as well, that you think, this is how I think it's going to, I envisage it, this section or this room, you know, eventually.
It's like for me, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. I rarely get to sort of imagine the whole thing finished.
Right.
I think that's probably fair. I don't have perfectionist tendencies, thankfully.
Right.
But because of whether that's how I started out or how that's evolved over the 10 years, is I understand that it's very much, okay, well, how can we make that corner work with what's here? You know, and that it sort of emerges as we're going, not just because sometimes we find furniture that we didn't know that was there, or cupboards we didn't know that were there, and they can be useful to us. But also how the person is interacting with the space, what's going to be possible. So just keeping our expectations managed as well, because otherwise it's only frustrating for everybody. But it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. But the same as yourself, you the person has to stay optimistic for them, and so there's always that next step that you've got in mind. For me, it's baby steps. It can, but enjoyable work. Reflecting on it, I do want to do another 10 years of it. I was going to write the book and go, I think that will do now.
I
do want to do another 10 years about it. And I feel a little bit of a sort of wise old bird now, Shelina.
I know.
So, you know, it's but I'm passionate about it, and I think it's very clear reading yours that you know, like I say, for people who, it's sometimes really hard to put down on paper what you consider to be straightforward in your own mind. But other people need that guidance. They need that permission. They need that, I'm a bit overwhelmed. How do I drill down to get some results? And those tools you've offered are super helpful. For me, I think it's that personal coaching that they are going to make their way through this if they stick with us with the work, and we make sure it's not too, and I always say, not as bad, it's not going to be as bad as you think.
Exactly. That's what I always say,
which is quite a great sales pitch. But in reality, that it's going to be okay. It's hard, but we're with you on the journey, and that's the important thing.
Well, I always say it's like a plaster, that I'm like, if you're with me for 4 hours or 8 hours, it's like ripping a plaster off. It's quick and painless. It's sort of painful, but it's painless in the long run, because the next day you won't have to deal with it again or see me. So that's a win-win, isn't it? Like, some of them want to see me again, so that's fine. But I'm like, just think of it like that. Just think 4 hours of pain with me, and then you can just have a big glass of wine or a big cup of coffee and just sit on the couch and not do anything. And yeah, that's the way to get them to love it. But anyway, finally, right? I love, and you most probably know, I love TV and movies, obviously, because I get cinema tickets all the time. So I love asking my guests, what are you loving currently? What have you seen that you highly recommend that we watch, or even read, if you read more than you watch TV or watch movies?
I have a book club, so I'm always reading, but not always the things that I would choose. We like to sort of mix and match, so I'm always exposed to different things. But I do love films. I love the getting absorbed. And I've got a teenage son. He's turned 13 now. And so one of the joys I've had is starting to introduce him to films that I hold dear in my heart.
Oh, really?
It is a mixed bag, because I think a year ago I sat him down to watch E.T. and I was imagining he'd be really moved, and he wasn't really moved. But as I watched it again through his eyes, I was like, well, these 90s films are really slow, aren't they? Or 85 films are really slow. And some of them aren't aged well. But so bringing him on board to watch things that I hold in high esteem, we've got space we can sit down and watch them together has been quite lovely. And we sat down and watched the Blues Brothers the other day.
God, that is so you can see how old that is. That one's hard work now.
You can. And it's farcical, and he doesn't know who most of those famous artists are in it, everything. But he's quite interested in playing the harmonica, and I said, well, you've got to watch the Blues Brothers. And wow, the car chase at the end and the silliness of it and everything. And Carrie Fisher is amazing in it. If you've only watched Star Wars, watching Carrie Fisher in that film is quite a stark contrast. So I enjoyed that, and he really enjoyed it, and so I'm getting a lot of joy from watching those films and getting his reaction. And some of those films that are more, this is an important film culturally, you should watch this film. So
I do that.
We're making our way through those.
Oh, it's funny about E.T. We went to Disney World, the whole family. We went with my nephews, and my brother and I, we went to Universal Studios, and they still have the E.T. ride there, which we went to the last time in 92 when it came out, right? And so we were very excited. So we said, we need to go on it. So we dragged everyone. Even my parents were like, no, let's not. We've been once. We went, and it's exactly the same as it was in 92. They haven't changed it. So it was really incredibly awful and boring, and it was so embarrassing. We were just sitting there going, oh my God. So I complained to Universal Studios afterwards. I went, could you not have updated it after all these years? And they were like, I don't think they even remembered that they had this ride still there, you know what I mean? But so
it's nice to have the exchange at his age as well. He's got me watching Lockwood and Co. on Netflix.
Right, okay.
So that's a book that he's reading at the moment, and it's ghosts and it's detectives and it's young people saving the day. And actually, I love it. So you've got a nice cultural exchange going on.
That's good. Oh, you have to watch Wednesday then. Have you seen Wednesday yet? No, Wednesday was very good.
Enjoyed that as well. So it's a nice trade-off. I get to watch some things I probably wouldn't normally. As Stranger Things, I had to sit and watch Stranger Things.
Oh, you see Stranger? Okay, I love Stranger Things.
Yes,
but it's very gory for kids. I don't know how they're watching it. I'm like a bit like,
Yeah, they're different. They're made differently. I think we're, some of those 90s horror throwbacks that it kind of tries to emulate probably resonate more with us than they that era. They don't have that worry about those sort of connotations, whereas we're still slightly traumatized from watching those things so young.
No, Nightmare on Elm Street. The only way I could get through that was to remember. Well, somebody on MTV once called him Pizza Face, and that's the only way I can watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I hate horror movies because of like the 80s and 90s. I can't stand them. Awful. Anyway, it was lovely as always. Thanks so much for being on here. Tell us, how can people get in touch with you? Tell us everything.
So Jasmine, my business is called Change Your Space, not to be confused with the book, which is called
Being Owned,
A Decade in Professional Decluttering. That's out now. People can find me at www.changeyourspace.co.uk, and there's some free resources on there, particularly if people are worried about family members, and they can speak to me. I am open, internationally for advice and so on. Where I'm more UK centric is knowing how sort of the social care system works here and funding and things like that. But certainly if people are concerned and want to have a chat, they can contact me through the website, and I'll respond.
Awesome. And I'm going to put your details on the show notes, as well as the link to pre-order your book. And thanks as always for being on. I love talking to you and having these chats. Thank you, babe. Thank you as always for listening to the Get Organised with Declutter Me podcast. If you'd like to get more tips and tricks, follow me on social media at DECLUTTRME, and you can find me on websites as well. Thanks again, and I will be back with another episode next week. So I see you next time. Take care. Bye.